Look at this beautiful book that we're going to tell you about today on objectivity here at the University of Edinburgh's Centre for Research Collections. This is really special. This is very rare. It may be the only one of its kind in the world, certainly that we know of. And Elizabeth, the librarian, is about to tell us about it. But before you get too excited, I want to tell you, this is actually a huge mistake. It's a total muck-up. People should be ashamed of this. Go on then.
Go on. My favourite shaggy dog story is this. This is a manual of a scientific inquiry prepared for the use of Her Majesty's Navy and adapted for travellers in general. Okay. This means that you issue it to the Navy and then you can sell it as well. So you make a nice profit on it. So the editor is Sir John Herschel, very, very famous, but also significantly, he's one of the 19th century's scientific enablers. He knows everybody, he organises things, he dragoons people into doing things, which paid off with this. So this is published in 1849. John Murray, publishers to the Admiralty. What it is, it's a guide to how to do scientific research in every different discipline that you can possibly imagine or could possibly need. The Navy at this stage are very, very keen on this sort of stuff because they've been doing hydrography, making charts and things for, what, 70, 80 years, going back to Cook in the middle of the 18th century. But it's become more important and it's becoming more professionalised.
And I can see here, Elizabeth, Herschel has really drafted a who's who of scientists. There's lots of famous names here that we've seen over the years in objectivity for sure. And each one is doing a different chapter on a different discipline of science.
That's right. Yes, and the significant one here is the chapter on geology by one Charles Darwin, Esquire.
Most people would think of Darwin, biology and things like that, but at this stage, he's better known.
He's better known for his geology because he's published all his stuff on the Beagle, including the book on the geology of the voyage of the Beagle. So, page 156, section 6, geology, Charles Darwin.
And he's going to tell us all sorts of interesting things, but here comes the problem.
So, you get some pages into it, and the printer messed it up.
On a page 178.
178. So it goes, most bold coasts are fronted by sharp promontories, and even isolated, found by removing the earth or birds down covering points of rock.
Okay, so it's like the sentence has veered somewhere else. Okay.
So that's the first half of the sentence from one page, and the second half of the sentence from half a dozen pages further on, which is exactly what the printer's done. So this text from here all the way down over several pages, I think we land over here somewhere.
Okay.
There's another break.
And it gets back on track.
No, it doesn't get back on track.
No?
Because this section has been misplaced, but it's been transposed with this section.
Oh.
So the bit here...
It's like a copy-paste gone mad.
Yes, copy-paste gone mad.
Because presumably what would have happened, there would have been a manuscript and then someone would have had the job of placing all the type.
Yes, so they're picking up individual pieces of type.
And making the words, and they've obviously picked up the wrong page and put them on the wrong...
Yes, and actually you then went from putting in all the little pieces of type, you then put the type into long trays called galleys, and then you broke it up into pages afterwards.
Right.
And I suspect that somebody, if they didn't go wrong at the copy stage, they've gone wrong at the galley stage, and they've picked up a chunk of text that didn't belong.
So Elizabeth, everyone makes mistakes, and obviously this has gone to press with this pretty bad mistake.
Horrible mistake. It does come back eventually, but this is several pages further on.
So what happens? Why is this interesting? How is this remedied?
Well, this is where the shaggy dog story takes over.
Okay.
The printers and the publishers discovered pretty rapidly what had gone wrong. So the first thing they did about it, still within this edition, they didn't junk the whole lot, they reprinted the chapter, issued it as a little separate booklet, and had the bindings made with a little pocket in the back for it to slip into.
Okay, so I would have bought this book and there would have been like a sleeve in the back where I could pull out the Darwin chapter without the mistake.
Exactly. Presumably once they got to the end of the copies they'd already bound, they were then able to bind the new chapter in. So you then get a copy which is apparently correct, or is correct.
Sorted. Okay.
Sorted.
So this is a state where it's got the mistake
and no correction.
And we also haven't got the sleeve in the back.
No pocket. This one, we know that this was issued completely uncorrected.
And that makes this, super
so
rare.
It makes it very rare.
Okay.
It also tells us a little bit more about what probably happened to it when it was new, because we know who its first owner was. Because on the title page there is a name, Henry S. Bradley, 1849.
Oh, look, and here,
1849.
1849 is when it's printed, so almost certainly the first person to own this
Has to be the first owner.
Yeah.
Now, we do know who Henry S. Bradley was, and actually we also know what else he got up to.
Okay.
Because that is pretty definitely his handwriting.
Oh,
so this
look.
is the chapter on hydrography. This is how to do navigation. So this is how you keep navigation logs. This is the blank form you do it on. This is the sort of stuff that they would be trained to do, they would have to do, it would be standard practice across the Navy, and it mattered.
But Henry has filled it in.
He's filled it in.
All right.
1849, November the 13th, November the 14th, November the 15th, 16th, 17th, and then he runs out of space.
So he's on a ship at this point.
He's on a ship and he gives the positions.
So we know where this book was on
We
those
know
dates.
exactly where this book was on those dates.
Don't keep me in suspense. Where was it?
Well, if you get your hemisphere right, it was coming out of New York and turning south. And in, 5-6 days, he hasn't got very far. Henry S. Bradley went to the California Gold Rush in 1849 and kept a diary of the voyage out from New York, down round Cape Horn and back up to California.
So this is the early part of his voyage around to the other side of America.
He took this with him very clearly. He kept his diary, which is now apparently in the California Historical Society.
It stayed in California too.
It stayed in California because it came to us with a collection of early editions of Darwin that had been collected by a medical doctor in California.
Now you have a bit of a theory as to why this was in America so early, don't you?
Yes. In the 19th century, there was no reciprocal agreement between Britain and the United States over copyright. The US didn't recognise British copyright. So if you were a British publisher, you were very desperate to secure the American market, because there's lots of people out there who will buy books, but you had to find a way of getting your product onto the market out there before some American publisher got their hands on it, reprinted it and sold it as their own, which they could do. And British publishers went to great lengths to find ways of achieving this. The obvious thing you did was you got your copies of the book out of the printing house, onto the steamer, across the Atlantic and on sale in New York as fast as possible.
Right.
And I think that's probably what happened to this.
So they were in such a rush to get it to the American market.
The first batch out of the printing shop was on a steamer before anybody discovered what had happened. So it finishes up on sale in New York uncorrected.
I can just see Charles Darwin on the docks going, wait, come back.
Yeah.
Why does this excite you so much?
Because this stuff does.
Yeah.
Because my profession is curating early printed books.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested in the history of print, the history of publishing, how all this stuff works, and how books get to be how they are. And that's just a most fantastic story.
So much like, I know stamp collectors really covet that inverted Jenny where the plane's upside down. This is like an inverted Jenny for you. This is like a Charles Darwin huge mistake.
Yes.
Like, it's so, because it's associated with someone so famous, it's a mistake, it's rare. Yeah.
And from our point of view, because we're a lot of what we are doing is helping people who are teaching. If you're trying to explain the history of the book and how these things work and why it matters, it's perfect.
The person who made the mistake, it was probably some just printing flunky. How do you feel about that person? Do you feel a warmth and an affection or a pity or an anger?
Oh, just deep sympathy, because this stuff, it still happens.
Yes.
Go to a printers today and they will be very, very wary about what people are touching, because if somebody picks up a book cover and puts it back on the pile the wrong way around, they can finish up binding the whole stack the wrong way up or something. But it's part of the very physical business of printing with metal type.
We're all human, and this is a fantastic example of that.
And it's just obviously had such a fantastic history.
He travelled on to Smyrna. Unfortunately, he's attacked by pirates and the sea over, so a lot of the letters that he's supposed to be taking from Oldenburg to Smyrna and to Constantinople are taken by the pirates.
We have proof of that here in his letter. He talks about this, doesn't he? Where does he say this?
Yeah, there's this almost casual paragraph in here when he goes on from Greece. In this my journey I had some misadventures. My companion Sir Giles Eastcourt died, by the way.
Right.
At sea I was plundered by the Serfiotes. That's not a word I could even Google, but it apparently must have been a pirate group in the Aegean in those days.